Hey everyone, this is Dr. Casey Johnson. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I know you're going to love today's episode with Tim Shieff. Tim is doing some amazing work, so I'm excited to have him on to share a story with you guys. If you've been loving the Unlock Wellness podcast, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Also, be sure to follow me on social media to keep up with the latest podcast episodes. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My username across the board is at Dr. Casey Johnson. That's DrKaseyJohnson. You can also check out my website at drcaseyjohnson.com. It has all of the past podcast episodes and more information about each guest under the Listen tab. While you're on my site, also be sure to check out the Shop tab, where you can check out my first book of my Healthy Children's Book series and learn about the Unlock Wellness Project, which applies a wellness bag to a child in need for each book purchased. Thank you again for listening. I hope this episode leaves you feeling inspired to start making positive changes to your health. Now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Tim Shieff. Welcome to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I'm Dr. Casey and excited for today's episode. I'm here with Tim Shieff, and Tim is one of the best known and successful athletes in free running and parkour. In 2009, he was the world champion. He's also competed in American Ninja Warrior competition as well as Ninja Warrior UK. And Tim is also a huge advocate for the vegan movement. He has an ethical clothing brand called Ethcs and recently launched a training program called Mindful Warrior that blends yoga and calisthenics. But I'm just extremely excited for Tim to be on the podcast to share a story and to share all of the amazing things that he's been working on. So just Tim, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I know you're all the way in London, right? So just extremely honored to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. I'm really honored that you'd have me on as well. I appreciate you reaching out to me, and to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in and sharing your time with me and Casey.
Yeah, and before we jump into your backstory, Tim, before we started recording, he was like, because he's it's the evening time for him. He's about 5 hours ahead of my time, and I was like, yeah, thanks so much. I know it's late, and then he's like, yeah, I've also been dry fasting for 24 hours. So, do you want to talk for a second about what that means and how you've been feeling from doing that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, fasting is something recently that's come to me. I think I'm very much into healing right now. Anyone says, what are you up to? I just say healing and hustling.
Love it. Really hey, that should be a shirt.
Yeah, well, I wrote it down as a note. We'll see.
I love it.
But so through healing, there's so many different things I've done, and I recently got into fasting, and nothing has been as powerful as that. And looking into that, and looking into dry fasting being even more powerful than water fasting and juice fasting, I thought I'd give a 36-hour dry fast a go, just a light one to start. And I'm about 24 hours in, and it's been a really interesting experience so far.
That's cool.
Really clear-headed, and well, it comes in waves, but and quite productive today.
That's awesome. Hey, have you been like active as you usually have been, or you've been kind of laying low just because it's just letting the body do extra healing without pushing yourself?
So today I've had to be active. I want to do like more extended fasts, like 1 week, 3 weeks.
Wow.
And if I was to do that, I would make sure I've got time off to lay low, but I'm just trying to get into it at the moment. And so I'm squeezing in 36 hours, 48 hours when I can. So I've been at the office, Ethcs, sending out parcels. So it's been managed to be productive on the fast. It depends how deep a healing you want to do. And yeah, there's a lot of different factors involved with it.
Fasting for sure has an amazing effect on the body. So that it's cool to hear how people react and how like people say that like it does make you more productive once you get past a certain time. I know those first like few hours, those first few missed meals might like suck a little bit, but once you get past that, like your body can really do some crazy healing. So that is really cool.
Yeah, well, one thing I recently heard Dr. Lauren Lockman say was that what we think is hunger is actually the body starting to enter detox. And so when we eat food, it stops the detox happening, and that's what we think is ending the hunger feeling. But actually, when we let our bodies rest and not constantly eat, and I tend to eat quite a lot, and so that's for me. It's not everyone's journey, but for me, it's like that's my challenge, is where I feel like I need to test myself, and so that for me is my challenge. And so when I stop consuming and my body rests, and then I do feel those what I assume is hunger pangs before, I actually realize that's just the body starting to detox. And it's really phenomenal just to challenge yourself in that new way.
No, I love that. And Tim, now we can kind of like just jump back into your backstory and just kind of like walk us through what your first off, like where you're from, and then also what your health and fitness looked like at a young age, and just how it's really just progressed over time to where you are right now.
Sure. Yeah. I was actually born in Connecticut in America. I lived there for about 3 years, and then I moved to the UK, and I grew up in Derby in England. I got into handstands very young, like 10 years old. I used to play upside down, and then I found a breakdancing class and got into breakdancing. I was always fascinated by movement and just body movement in general from a young age. And then when I was about 15, I discovered parkour or free running, and got into that. And by the time I was 18, I was doing it professionally and traveling around the world doing commercials and TV shows, record shows and things. And then when I was about 21, 22, I won the World Free Running Championships in 2009. And that was just a real life-changing moment for me in terms of just my family acknowledging that what I do isn't just some crazy kid jumping off the roof. Like, is actually, there's a profession in it, and there's a real, sport developing with it.
Right. And Tim, for people listening that maybe isn't familiar with free running, parkour, and those are both those two terms are the same, right?
Yeah.
Free running,
so essentially,
okay.
Yeah, essentially they mean the same thing. And it's like urban gymnastics, like jumping between rooftops and somersaulting and balancing on rails. And it's quite a discipline. It seems to a lot of people that aren't into movement, it can look quite reckless, but actually there's a lot of calculations going on, and it was very safe. I never broke a bone doing parkour.
Yeah, really. That is surprising, because I've seen a bunch of your videos, and you see some your videos and videos of other people that do that as well. It really is extreme, and it's crazy. And so I know that you said you won the world championships. You got a chance to do American Ninja Warrior, right? So how was that whole experience?
Yeah, so when it was early on in the series, like season 2 or 3, and it was just in Venice Beach, I was able, as an American born in America, I was able to compete as an American. So I competed there. I did I made the semis in that the year after I went to Miami trials, and I won the Miami trials and made it to the finals in Vegas. And then the year after, I made it to the finals in Vegas again. And then I stopped competing as an American, and they decided to do America versus the world, and I was captain of Team Europe, and that was 3 seasons ago, and we won that, and I got the fastest time on stage 1 as an athlete. And yeah, I'd just gone vegan around a few years before, and it was kind of a nice confirmation of me that to put any doubters about the vegan diet and being a healthy athlete to rest. It was good for that kind of angle.
Definitely. And what you said you did go vegan, what made you want to do that, and how was that just learning the process of that? How did it affect you initially, and just as you developed as an athlete? Just kind of walk us through your whole process of what the what kind of even got that planted in your mind to even think about it, and is how it affected you.
Yeah, I think like anyone, I always cared about animals and wanted to be a nice person, and kind and compassionate where my mind was present and aware of it. But I remember one really defining moment was sort of getting out my car on a wet autumn evening in the dark, coming home from the gym, and just walking to my front door and feeling a crunch under my foot, and then being like, oh no, is that a snail? And looking down, and I trod on the snail, and I felt bad for the snail, and I didn't know if it was dead or alive, and should I stamp on it and put it out as misery and make sure it's dead, or this kind of things. It's feeling guilty for a snail. I was if I watched where I was going. And then I went inside, and I made a ham and cheese sandwich, and then my thoughts went back to the snail, and then I realized I was eating a pig, and I was like, how can I feel guilty for a snail when I'm eating this pig, and there's these people out there called vegetarians that exist, that are alive, that are alive. And that's what started my sort of quest to looking into it, being like realizing my own hypocrisy of, that guilt feeling for an accident. You shouldn't feel guilty for accidents, but if you can make a mindful choice otherwise, then I think that's where we should direct our attention and the emotions. So that led me on the path, and I just looked into it more and tried it, and within days I sort of felt better. I was eating a lot of meat and dairy really beforehand, and I loved it. I loved lasagna, carbonara, cheeseburgers. Like I didn't really pay much attention to my diet. I was a bit balanced. I wasn't overboard with heavy foods, but I still enjoyed it a lot. So that was like a real shift for me. And then since I've eaten every meal I ever enjoyed beforehand as a vegan, and realized you can eat all the same foods, but just without the conscience of knowing what's gone on behind the door, looking at the plate, and just feeling better. The experience of it was really the truth for me.
Right. So for you, it was more like, was it more for like the animals at that point, or was it more for like, because that sounds like you were saying, like it's more for, you felt guilty about it, kind of the ethical side, and then you realized how it could help you as an athlete. Because everybody has different angles usually as their first initial like interest in it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get into it for health or the environment, and it seems like 5-10% get into it for the animals, and I was. It doesn't matter why anyone gets into it.
Right.
As long as, you realize what's going on eventually. But for me, it was certainly an ethical point of view to begin with. And watching people like Gary Yourofsky's talk really helped.
I've heard that from a few people, that it seems to like be super impactful. That the name of that speech, it's called like the greatest speech ever or something like that, right?
And it was for me, it changed my life. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now I'll put that in the show notes. That way, if you guys are listening and you want to hear the talk that he's talking about, you can just go click it and go check that out. But, Tim, how did you find that, like, once you started to implement it? Because, with your parkour free running, it takes an extreme toll on your body. Like, you are moving in all directions. It's very taxing on the body. Like, how did you find that implementing that? How did you react just as an athlete, or was there any change at all?
Yeah, for me, it was nothing but good response in my body. Really, it's as an athlete, especially in my sport, it's good to have a good strength to body weight ratio. And all I did was I lost fat I lost quite a bit of fat, and then I lost a tiny bit of muscle, but not much. But what wasn't necessary for me to hold anyway.
Right.
When you eat heavy meats, it can just build big size that's not necessary for an athlete especially in my field. So I just felt better in my body.
Gotcha. Did you feel like you recovered quicker, or like you weren't as sore as long, or did it affect you any ways like that?
Yeah, I noticed better recovery. I used to have my knees used to hurt when it was colder in the winter, and that was one of the main things that I noticed went away. My knees felt a lot better, and just all any healing that you do in any direction always seem to have the same symptoms of feeling better in every way, generally, kind of like, and it was just part of that. I just felt sort of clearer minded, better sleep, better memory, felt better in my body, my joints, felt younger, looked younger.
It's interesting because, like, you said you're all about healing and hustling, right? And that's like, what better thing can you do if you're not like fasting? It's kind of the same thing. Whenever you're eating a vegan diet or a plant-based diet, like, it gives your digestive system's not working as hard. So that energy that you would have used to digest something for a really long time, now you have that energy to use in other ways. So, and that's kind of the thing with fasting, right? You're not using that energy to digest food, so you're able to produce more energy and recover and heal faster, right?
It seems like exactly that. I think our current mainstream science view of nutrition is so wayward, and there's so many different directions proving all these. There's is it the ketogenic diet, and then there's the high carb vegan diet, and there's sort of the opposite ends of the spectrum, and both seem to work for different people. And it's like, I've started to realize, how about both work at different, and it's about balancing both worlds. And so fasting is sort of the ketogenic where it like burns the fat, and then eating high carbs is just a straight fuel of glycogen for your muscles. So there's no right or wrong with it all. I think they can all work, and it's finding the balance and trying to solve it for yourself rather than looking at someone else's data and science posts and stuff.
Yeah, no, I love that, because like I get to hear, through the podcast, just a lot of different stories, and everybody has different things that they've done that have worked really well for them. And it's been cool because the last few episodes we've gotten to like touch on that. It's like, if you try to go vegan or plant-based and maybe it's not working for you, or you're not feeling those benefits, like maybe you just need to like tweak some things and then you'll start to feel those benefits. Like everybody, maybe, so like some people might need to eat more like healthy carbs, like not like the processed, refined carbs, but like more of like the healthy carbs, or like more fruits or things like that. So it's interesting, but like everybody's body's so different, but there's different ways that you can go about it to really kind of experiment and see what's going to be best for you.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I've always been led to, and I quite quickly when I got into veganism, went not straight to, but was led to raw veganism. And that's quite a hit or miss one with a lot of people. And I think the biggest factor, and for me, it makes sense that humans are fruitarians more than anything in terms of a whole physiology. If we evolved from apes, and the diets that they eat, and the ones that eat more fruit than eat more greens actually have way bigger brains in the monkey kingdom. And there's a whole relationship we have with fruit that there's books about and stuff that fascinate me. But essentially, the biggest mistake people make is if you combine fruit is so powerful and potent and is hydrating and everything. But if you combine it with other fruits or the wrong fruits, or you combine it with a meal, or you eat like potatoes and then afterwards you eat some oranges or a banana smoothie, or if you're combining foods in your stomach, fruit really demands respect and like to be eaten alone in the mono meals. And when you combine it with lesser quality foods, then you start to have problems, and people don't be like, oh, it didn't work for me. And it's like there's a real craft to how you eat, really.
That's cool.
Like, it's beyond what we can just learn from YouTube. It's really learning yourself.
Yeah, like a food combination. Did you have a resource that helped you with the food combination aspect of it? Because I think I think it's super interesting, and I personally haven't dove into that like aspect of it yet, but it does make sense. Like your body digests things differently. Was there a resource that really helped you with learning how to really combine certain types of foods?
There's apps I've had in the past, and there's books. I was reading a book. I just got it from like the 60s, talking about food combining, and it's saying how doctors would recommend against eating fruit. And he was like, it was because they're eating it with other food, and it was like they should recommend against eating the other food, not recommend against eating the fruit. And it's like there's this whole like half truth misconception with it all. But yeah, there's intuitively you feel it when you really start to tap in, and if you mono meal on fruits, or you combine, sometimes like you can have bananas and persimmons, and you can eat fruit with like leafy greens, but then it's like don't have starches with it. And yeah, you can find it for yourself, but there's a lot of different people's research out there. One good resource I'd recommend is Dr. Douglas Graham's The 8-10-10 diet. That's it's a really accurate way that I've found.
Awesome. And did you find that do you eat mostly raw diet, or what worked best for you?
Yeah, it comes and goes. Sometimes I'll be eating a lot of cooked food and not feel that good, and then I'll switch to raw and be like, oh my God, raw is the answer. I've found it. And then I won't be feeling that good on raw, and I'll eat some potatoes, and I'll be like, oh, I just need to eat steamed potatoes again, And so you get these new waves of inspiration. You're like, this is the way. And eventually you realize, no, there's no like direct one way for all. Like you have to really go with the flow of the seasons. I'm in England right now, and it's cold, and I ate a lot of steamed veg throughout the winter, and I felt good on it. And then come spring now, I did a few days raw, and I felt even better. And I'm like, well, okay, cool, So yeah, finding your own flow and realizing that as you do start to heal, you will start to be more in sync with the seasons and with nature.
I love it. No, that's awesome. And to go back to the the free running a little bit, I've seen a lot of the videos, and like we were saying earlier, it's a very extreme way to move and exercise. Do people that don't understand the sport, do they think you're insane? Because there's that, like you said, on top of buildings. Did you ever have any close calls that could have been potentially very dangerous?
There's none that fully stand out. I really think life is beyond just like this crazy experience that of chance happenings and potential deaths at any corner. And it's like that when you start to test the boundaries of life, and you're doing it from a pure uh, experience. You just want to witness something and try something, and it's not to show off. I feel there's a certain protection that we all have, you could call it angels or whatever, or just some spirit, or it's not your time to go. Like there's a plan for it. Who knows what it is? But I really feel when I'm like on a building, and if I really believe it, and it's discerning what voice is telling you to do something. Is it your ego or is it your heart? Like, do you want to do it of like a pure spirited new experience, or do you want to do it to show off and to make loads of views on YouTube?
Viral video, yeah.
Viral video, yeah, exactly. And so for me, I always had this sort of intuitive feeling that as long as I was doing it purely, and there's like that tiny voice of fear in the back of your mind, and you can just say, hey, I'm not listening to you right now, and just focus on following what you feel guided to do. I've always felt, really protected in that, and that's not for everyone saying they could do parkour, but for me, that was my calling, is to do with movement. From a young age, I was drawn to it, and so I've pursued it.
Right. And you're crazy prepared. Like you're not just, it's not just like some amateur out there trying to do a handstand on the side of a building, right? Like you've trained your entire life to do something like that, which I think is important to understand too. People probably see those videos and want to do those cool things, like you said, for a viral YouTube video, and they're just not prepared at all.
I'd done it hundreds, thousands of times, each move at safer levels, and built up gradually, from a foot off the floor to 2 foot off the floor to 5 feet to a 1 story to 3 stories. And also it's learning how to fall. And if you look at it like people put themselves in your feet and go, oh, if I was to do that and I didn't make it, this and this would happen, I'd fall down. But for me, there's so many stages of like, I can catch myself here, I can grab this, I can turn it into this. And, it's same how that transcends across life to, like I say, with diet and stuff. It's like, if you're trying to be raw, and often people have these, they like snap back. If they try to go too far above where they're at, and they'll fall back and they'll go back to like McDonald's and eating the junk food, and they'll be at the drive-thru the next minute. And it's like setting up ways to fall. So it's like, if I'm not raw, I'm going to have steamed potatoes, or I'm going to have, oats and almond milk or something, or knowing that, okay, if I'm not at this stage, what's my other stage? You can apply it to everything in life, whatever we're trying to do, whatever we're trying to evolve from. If we're trying to get off addictions to anything, we are, from alcohol or anything, it's like, okay, if I do fail, what's the safer place for me to stop at, rather than going all the way back down to the bottom and trying to build up gradually.
I love that. No, that is perfect. And like you said, you literally can apply that to anything, any aspect in your life. And that's cool to be able to know, like, just have that awareness that they are the same thing.
Knowing how to fall. How to fall. Yeah.
Exactly. So like, what is the highest elevation that you've done that at?
I was in Hong Kong. One of my favorite videos I made, it's called Hong Kong Playground on YouTube, if anyone wants to check it. And I was, 40, 50 stories up. What's really nice there is you can just walk into a lobby of a building, walk into the elevator, press the top floor, go up, and then walk up one flight and go out the fire escape onto the roof. And,
and nobody's going to stop you.
And they don't really they don't stop you. And eventually, if they do come up and get you, they just ask you to leave. And as long as you leave the building, there's no real issues. And that might sound a bit brash to some people. And as I've grown older, I've sort of grown away from that. But as a younger person, I think it's beautiful just to explore. And it's like a pigeon could be on the roof, or a squirrel, but why can't I be on the roof? Oh, because I'm human.
Right.
There's some laws, and there's these paperwork, and there's this, and it's because I'm what? Because I'm a different species, but these other animals are allowed to be up here. Like, I know myself, and I started to act. And that was always like a calling to be sovereign as a youth, being into free running and parkour and climbing on roofs of buildings. I would never damage stuff. I'd always have respect for the environment, and that transcended towards veganism as well, was the respect for my environment. But it's a sort of calling and inner desire to be free and to be trusted in myself, and not have to have these laws by society that govern me and dictate what I'm allowed to do and where I'm allowed to go,
Right. No, I love that. And I'm definitely going to share that link in the show notes as well. So be sure to check that out too, because it's really cool. And Tim, let's jump a little bit into your ethical clothing line called Ethcs. And it's actually, if you're listening, it's Ethics, but there's no I, so it's just ETHCS. So do you want to talk about like how that even started, what planted that into your mind, and then just how that whole process has been? Because it's really growing really quickly. I mean, you're seeing some people like really big influencers support it. And I just think it's really awesome. So yeah, so just dive into ethics a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. So I started about 2.5 years ago, and it was called Ethics and Antics originally. And it was just there was a lot of vegan activist clothing around, but it was always quite aggressive and harsh messages. And I never liked to come from sort of that perspective, like, yeah, go vegan, don't kill animals, kind of in someone's face. So the first shirt we released was just the word vegan, but backwards. So it looked like Negev or Negev. And people really connected with it. My followers seem to like that. You know, it says vegan, but it doesn't say vegan. Or someone has to ask you, so what's Negev mean? And then you can start the conversation
right
that round, rather than, you know, just vegan on a t-shirt. And then last year, my former business partner left and a new guy came in, and we thought, if we're going to rebrand the company, we should do it now. And Nike used to be called Blue Ribbon Sports. So it was like, what can we do that sort of simplifies the message of what we're about? And so I remember a quote, someone said, I want happiness, to the Buddha. And he said, first remove I, because that's ego, then remove want, because that's desire, and you're left with happiness. So I always stuck with me that sort of I is related to ego. What do I want? And making it about me. And the whole point of the activism of the clothing is it's not about the person with the clothing. It's about having less ego in it. It's not in your face and shouting, stop doing this, don't do that. It's like, it's just projecting a sort of more positive message. So we removed the I from ethics. So it's Ethcs. And it's just, we think we like it. It's really clean. And as we move forward, we're moving slightly away from vegan activist clothing, though we still have that, but more towards just really comfortable, quality made, ethically sourced clothing using organic cottons. I think as people grow into health and well-being, and whether people get into ethical living, whether it's like zero waste projects, you know, not everyone gets into ethical living through veganism. There's other routes in, and looking at the plate is just one way, but the clothes that are on our back, you know, we can look at a plate and we know the ingredients that go into making the plate, but do we know what's gone into sewing the clothes that's on our back and on our, you know, on our legs? So we just wanted to create a resource, a place where people could buy clothes and they know it's all created ethically. And then using organic cottons, you know, our skin absorbs so much stuff. It's the biggest organ on our body. And when we're wearing a lot of polyester clothes and all these chemicals, we really don't know. We're guinea pigs for the future. Like asbestos and cigarettes was something that was used, and then now later they're like, oh yeah, actually this stuff is really harmful. And it's like all these new chemicals and these strange materials in our clothes is coming out. And actually there's a book called Killer Clothes I read that just sums it all. It just basically explains all the different materials and how they're harming us in different ways, and all the, even cottons, if they've been sprayed because they're not organic, they've used all chemical sprays and fertilizers, that then is still in the material, and we wear it on our skin, and it, you know, it goes into our bodies. And so trying to be as organic with the materials as possible, I think, is something we all either will look at now, or in the future everyone's going to start to look at.
Yeah, and I think saying guinea pigs for the future, like, I mean, that's so perfectly said, because we really don't know how these things are going to affect us until, like, I mean, it's until it's kind of too late. And I think that having companies like yours, it's really going to help change the way for that, because like you said, people just aren't aware that those chemicals are on the clothing like that. And it makes sense once you hear it, but they might think, oh, it washes out or things like that, but it really doesn't. And that's really amazing what you're doing with that. And like, as far as, like, you know, as being an ethical company too, you guys do other things like super positive too, right? Like no child labor, things like that. Do you want to talk on that for a second?
Yeah, I mean, it's all fair trade and fair wear certified, which means that the people that work at the farms that get the organic cotton are all paid a fair living wage. They choose to work, and they're all of working age. And then the same goes for the factories. And that it's made in India. We hope to go out to the factory this year and actually document it, because I think a lot of our audience want to see the place where it's actually created as well. We try to be transparent with that. And a percentage of our profits goes towards an animal sanctuary called Huglet's Wood Farm Animal Sanctuary, which is based in England. And it's a really beautiful sanctuary. They only allow visitors 4 times a year. I think a lot of people picture sanctuaries and they get into veganism and they want to visit all these animals and stroke all these cows and stuff. And actually, what I really like about this sanctuary, like I say, they only open 4 days a year because the animals don't want to be petted by a different human 5 times a day. Like
That's
they want
true.
they want their own space, just like we want our own space, and they want familiarity, and they just want time and alone in the field with their family and their friends, rather than just all these different visitors and energies coming through. And we're quite we just want to help, but at the same time we can be quite a hindrance. I always picture it like if you're on a plane and there's a baby behind you and they're kicking your chair,
right?
And they don't know that they're doing it, but they're still doing it. And then at some point, someone has to say to them, "Hey, when you kick the chair, there's a person in front that is affected by your action," and then that child will learn. And it's like, how much stuff do we do in our lives that's still like that kid kicking the chair that we're not like, what I mean? If you start petting cows and all this stuff, there might be disturbing to it if it didn't want to be. So I think as we get into animal welfare and respecting animals, I think that's an important angle to look at. So sometimes it's best just to respect and appreciate animals from a distance rather than need to go. It's good to see them so that they're like have a soul and you can see that they're a living being, But so a bit of a tangent there, but I just wanted to say, that we support a sanctuary that has that kind of mindset when it comes to looking after the animals.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad that you did go off on that tangent, because honestly, that's something that I really didn't think about. So that I'm sure the people listening probably didn't really think about that either. So no, I love that. And like, as far as like starting that company, like what's been the biggest struggles with that you've had to come across?
Yeah, for sure. There's no easy road with it.
Right.
Yeah. So I lived in London and I was a professional free runner for years. And then when I started the company and got into veganism, it sort of helped. I drifted off of, it was hard for me to focus on just being like a really good athlete when I see what's going on in the world. And I wanted to, my soul is called to work in an area that can make more of a difference than just my ego being satisfied with people going, "Oh, you're really good at doing flips." It is a change of tracks for me. And so just working as my income, it's changed. So I'm no longer making good money from doing commercials. Your ethics. There's a turning point when we were offered to do a commercial for, I think it's Shieff for men, and they test on animals, and I was like, I can't do it. And the other people in my team wanted to do the advert, and I was like, I'm out now. Like I can't, and I refused to work with Red Bull and other companies. So your ethics start to limit how much income you can make in that field as well.
Right. And Tim, that says a lot about you, because I mean, how many athletes would kill to be able to do a commercial for people like Shieff and Red Bull, especially in somebody that has, like a super hardcore sport, like to be sponsored by Red Bull is like a dream. So, I mean, I think that if you're listening, like that says a lot about Tim and about his, like, just, I mean, you say ethics, right? Kind of fits, but it says a lot about you and your values. And like, I respect that so much.
Thank you. Once you, I don't know, start to connect with your sort of, maybe it sounds too wishy-washy, but like higher self, it's like you just can't make those choices. It's not your choice. You know what I mean? It's out of my hands at that point. So I'm in a different world now. So just trying to make a living from a clothing company. I moved back to my home city of Derby and I run it now with my best friends. So it's like a complete shift in money. And then, with clothing, you've got to buy inventory and stock. And then if you might buy something that you really like, but your audience doesn't quite connect with it and it doesn't sell as well. So then you're left with stock. And it's just, I know anyone's got business struggles, so I can't really complain. But it's not just like, oh yeah, we make cool clothing, everyone buys it, and we make loads of money. It's not. It's really a day-to-day struggle of all the day-to-day tasks of buying clothing, and of course when you occasionally we'll get people comment like, someone will say it's overpriced. I don't think we overprice it. It's about $25-$30 for a t-shirt. We offer free shipping to the UK, and shipping to abroad is quite cheap as well. It's free shipping for orders over about $60 abroad. And it's like when it's high quality, it's ethically sourced, organic materials, and it's like, and we've still got to survive as well. We do a really fair price. So it's like,
yeah, I mean, most places are going to be like 25 for a t-shirt. I feel like that's pretty normal.
Yeah, I think so. And it's like your profit margins just aren't as big as other companies. You might be able to get a t-shirt for like $1 or $2 made and then sell it for $20-$30. It's like t-shirts are costing us, $10 minimum. And,
right.
And so it's like, but we've just from the beginning decided that's going to be how it is, and we just have to work from here upwards. It's not a quick book, and that's just how ethical companies exist at the moment. It's trying to build networks where you find other ethical companies and you can connect with like the owner or other people that work with them, and we help grow each other rather than these giant corporations.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. No, I love that. And like your reach is really growing though. Like I know one of your shirts, it says like Vegang, like VGANG. And like I'm pretty sure, like I don't think it was a coincidence, but like I saw where like Will.i.am, like he went vegan, the rapper, and he put that on his Twitter, right? So is that like, has he reached out to you at all or supported the brand, or was that like just a coincidence, or did you see that?
Yeah, we saw that. I don't know how he's seen it or heard it. I don't know how it came to his awareness. I've actually been snowboarding with his manager, like,
oh, that's cool,
years before, and I don't know if it was his manager. His manager was vegetarian at the time, and William wasn't either. So I don't know if his manager mentioned it to him, because I was definitely wearing vegan hoodies when we were out in the Alps. So maybe it came through that. But yeah, vegan is a really cool, another way of saying vegan, but not saying vegan. And it's like, if you are part of the vegan, or vegetarian, part of the vegan. So that one was a really popular item for ours. And yeah, it's cool to see people like him wearing it. Ellie Goulding's worn that T-shirt as well.
That's awesome. So. No, that's cool. Like, what's it feel like whenever you do see somebody like high profile like that wearing your clothes and tagging you? And like, it has to be like a super rewarding feeling. Like you said, you went from, super high up athlete and like flipped it all around because, you're chasing like your morals. So like, how does it feel when you see somebody like that supporting a mission that you are so passionate about?
It's nice to know that we're all aligned, and just to see people in those positions, because that's the biggest thing for me. Is like, people in those positions, they get boxed in where they can't take a stand, and they're afraid to take a stand. And it's nice to see when people like Will.i.am are free enough and sure of their beliefs enough that they can make statements about it, because it's so easy. There's a lot of people like Beyonce talks about plant-based, and she'll do it for 22 days and then go back, and it's quite wishy-washy. And it's like, I get it's not for everyone, and everyone has to do their own approach, but I just love seeing people that stand for something more than their own celebrity, and they're willing to sacrifice some of that following because some people might not agree,
Yeah, or like people that are thinking like, oh, because they're a celebrity, they don't deserve to have a voice. When, if somebody has a platform like that, like, you have to use your voice, because it's like, you have the audience, you have the reach. What better place to be in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. So, and you did say with Ethcs, like even people in the US, they can order, right?
Yeah, we ship worldwide, and like I say, it's £50, so that's about $60-70. Orders over that get free shipping as well. So it takes about 10 days to arrive from here.
Cool. Because I'm definitely ordering one once we jump off here. I need to pick out which one that I want, but so definitely going to do that. So cool. Yeah, and if you guys are listening too, I'll put the link. Go check it out and support what he's doing, and be sure to post it on social media and tag him in. But yeah, it's him. We'll kind of finish up talking about your new program that you just put out, right? It's called Mindful Warrior, and yeah. I love how you described it, just a blend of yoga and calisthenics. So if you just want to talk about what it's all about, what people can find with the program, how it works, and the benefits that people are going to see from trying it out.
Yeah, so I've had I got into running and it got a few injuries from that, and just getting a bit older, your body starts to tighten up a bit. And I was like questioning what do I need to do? And I was going to yoga, and that was helping a bit. But I think there's so many ways, things I've learned from yoga, I wanted to cross it over into other parts of my life. And so I'd go into the gym, and I was hanging on the bar, and rather than doing chin-ups, I was like, I don't want to just try and do chin-ups. Like, what else can I do in this position? How about I try and move really controlled and slow? And, I've done like a lot of rock climbing as well, and other practices that have given me sort of different ways of moving and ideas. And when you take it into a new environment and get creative, so much can come from that. And so Mindful Warrior is really kind of like it is like a yoga calisthenics spend. So there's a whole bar workout with no chin-ups involved. There's about 20 different movements that you'll do, but there's not a single chin-up. So I wanted to make something that's accessible to everyone, that every level can get something, that everybody at every level could get something from. And it works really in the slower parts of the muscles. If you see cats, they never really move like fast, apart from in like life or death or real like emergency or shock moments. Most of the time they're moving slow and controlled, and from that slow and controlled movement they build muscles that are ready to go anytime. And so I've been practicing that for a while now, is just moving, like walking up and down stairs in just a really mindful way, where rather than the normal way of just pushing off with the calf, pushing off the toe, it's like you actually think about what muscles you should be engaging, and engaging the more efficient muscles to use, and just readdressing the way we move completely, and doing it just mindfully and controlled, and actually feeling what muscles work when you do that, and working fiber by fiber throughout the muscles. And it's really just, it changed the way. Yeah, I did a video in Venice Beach called King of Venice Beach, and it was just, I wanted to make a course that would appeal to people's souls rather than their egos. A lot of people just want muscle ups and big tricks, and they'll, for their Instagrams, Instagram and YouTube, and they just want to learn moves as fast as possible, and they're missing out on alignment, and they're either getting injured on the way, or down the line they're going to hit a problem, and again they're feeding their ego. So it's, you can do these moves, but it's about getting them at the right pace for your body rather than trying to rush them. So I wanted a course that would help to build people a foundation body, which they could then enter these other more dynamic movements from, or they could get into rock climbing, or they could get into parkour from, or into breakdancing. It was like a course to build a foundation body to start from, because a lot of people don't know where to begin with kind of parkour and things like that. And so I don't want people just to jump straight in at the high end stuff. I wanted them to start at a more controlled place. So I developed Mindful Warrior, and it essentially is volume 1 right now, and it's 5 different classes. 2 that you will do on the stairs, 1 that you do on a bar, 1 that you do on a bench, and 1 that you do on the floor in the gym or on the grass. And it's a full body, like I call it a work in rather than a workout, because you're working in or inner size rather than exercise. It's like,
yeah, I love it.
Really present throughout all the movements. I hope I sort of did it some kind of justice with that.
No, it sounds amazing. And like, so you said there's 5 different classes with that, right? So like for people that do, and it's all online, right?
It's a one-off payment, one online course. Yeah, 5 classes. We did it through Teachable, but if you go to mindful-warrior.com, that's where you can check out all the info on there. And it's only £22, which is like $30. I've seen people, when we're contemplating the price, I see people charge like $100 for much less quality done courses. And even the soundtrack is what's it called? Dynamic.
Is it binaural beats?
Binaural beats, yes.
Cool, that's awesome.
While I'm talking about the movement, it's really like a healing course, and I think it's a really generous price that we put it for. And we just want people to try something new. And I think anyone that tries it will get a whole new awareness of how to function in their body from it.
That's cool. No, I love that. And yeah, no, that price is amazing. So with those 5 classes, I know you said that's volume 1. Is that something like people do, like they do 5 classes in a row and they repeat it and just keep going? Or like, how is the recommended like use of it?
Yeah. So it's sort of an outline for everyone. So you can follow the classes and you can just repeat the classes. And I didn't want it to get boring at all. It's not, like I say, there's like 20 different movements in each class. So you can go through this and you won't ever repeat anything twice. And you might enjoy just repeating the class. Or what I encourage people to do as well is, say you like 5 movements from one of the classes, play with them, change. There's only a rough like rep count or set count, because everyone's body's different, and they might really like one of the movements and want to do loads of reps and sets of that. So you could take 5 movements from the stairs and just repeat that as your whole workout, and do more sets and reps, and just develop it for yourself. I wanted to allow people their own creative spin on the course, but I just wanted to give them loads of different movements that they might never have thought of or never tried before, and then they can take it from there.
Right. And get better, like just more advanced with it, and build up to kind of like where you are, right? And just go from that beginner to more advanced just over time. Yeah,
it's really like there's some crawling animal movements on the floor and on the stairs, and some like it's like yogic type movements, but in different environments. You're not just on a mat, you're on the bench doing these movements with your toes up, or you're doing down dog with your toes up, and it's a completely different feeling when you're there. And it will help train people that want to get into handstands. It's a lot of like some movements where you be on your shoulders, so you can build up that strength, so you're not just jumping straight into trying to walk on your hands, and just build a good foundational body and just help get you coordinated and communicating with all your limbs.
Nice. No, I love that. It sounds awesome. I'm definitely going to check it out as well. And, Tim, just as we close up, like, is there anything that you are working on just in the future, or just continue just to build up ethics, build up Mindful Warrior, or just anything that you want to just share with people to be looking for?
Yeah. I mean, we've got new stuff coming for spring on ethics.com, ethcs.com. But really, yeah, just be kind to yourself, people, man. It's crazy times. And I think the more you do get connected to yourself, the more challenges you're going to face. And these challenges might last for months at a time. I had a really tough year last year. Emotionally, physically, spiritually. I went through a lot of challenges. And what really helped heal me, aside from discovering fasting, which I think is such a powerful practice, just to actually stop. We always want to just put more in us to change things, but actually we need to stop. We need to put less in us, I think. But finding a creative outlet and spending time doing that creative outlet, and that's sort of the service back to the world. And when you're doing that, you're really connected. It's a real feminine energy to be creative, and it's trying to balance our feminine and masculine energies. Just because we're men or women doesn't mean we should be more masculine or more feminine. So it's like, if we ever feel imbalanced or at unease, it's trying to, how can I be more feminine? I'll make my front room more like decorative, or like, there's all these different ways that we can try and balance this out. I didn't mean that to sound sexist or feminist anyway. I'm trying to.
No, I totally understand.
Across. Do you know what I mean? It's trying to balance it within ourselves, understanding what masculine and feminine energy each are.
Right.
And that sometimes we can be too far in one side or the other. And I think that is one of the biggest lessons I got for healing as well. It's like, and for me, being more creative was embracing my feminine a bit more. Right.
No, I totally get what you're saying. And like, I love that. And like, what is the best way, Tim, for people to follow you on social media or any websites that you have? That way people can stay up to date on what you're doing with all of your amazing work.
Sure. Yeah. Instagram is at Human Timothy. So that's pretty straightforward. Human Timothy. YouTube, if you search Human Timothy or Tim Shieff, or Livewire on YouTube. I think I'll give you the links so they can check that out. But that's my main two outlets. I'm on YouTube, and I talk about a lot of spiritual stuff, and I document some of my like healing things that I try and the fasting. But Instagram's the main one for me, at Human Timothy. And if you DM me on there, I check all my direct messages. That's it.
Awesome. I love it. And I know that actually your last like statement before I asked where to connect, on my closing question that I ask every guest. I always ask, what's one piece of advice that you would give the audience? Maybe it's something that's been your biggest takeaway through just your whole wellness journey so far. Like, but if you just had one piece of advice to give, what would it be? And I know you just you gave a really good one just a minute ago. But if you have anything else left of your Timothy wisdom, feel free to share. If you just have one piece of advice.
Yeah, man, it's a crazy journey. Okay, I guess. Another one is, if you ever hit any blocks, mental, spiritual, or physical, use one of the others to get around it. So if your body's hurting and you have a physical issue, maybe focus on your spirit and read some spiritual texts. Or your mental, you need to focus more on your business and your implementation into this world. Or if you do have like a business block, through the mental, then again, spiritual texts, or join a gym, start sweating every day, or working out. Or if you have a spiritual block, maybe you're too focused on the spiritual aspect of yourself, and you need to actually feed the other. And we can get too imbalanced with that, especially spirituality. We can get too absorbed in that and start to reject the world around us. And so you actually need to find a way. That's for me. I have ethics as my like plug into the business world and the actual world, and making a difference that way. So it's all like I said before with masculine and feminine, it's all about balance. And so it's making sure that you are balancing your physical, mental, and spiritual. And again, as an athlete, I was too focused in the physical and ignoring my spiritual until sort of veganism. And I read Eckhart Tolle and New Earth and started to understand myself, my own ego, and that sort of changed me. So yeah, always, if you have any blocks, it's hard to get through them by just pursuing that, and you're stuck in a plateau. go around it by using the other realms.
No, I love that. That's perfect, Tim. And just, Tim, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I was extremely excited to have you and just excited just to support everything that you're working on because I love it. It's all amazing.
Hey, Casey, you're doing an amazing service to the people, and I really appreciate you having me on and letting me spread what I'm doing as well.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved my conversation with Tim. I love the work that he's doing, so be sure to give him a follow on social media to keep up with everything that he's been working on. You can find his social media links and website that we talked about in the episode in the show notes, but you can also find them on my website as well at drcaseyjohnson.com. That's drkaseyjohnson.com. Click on the Listen tab. Then from there, you'll be able to see all of the past guests that have come on the Unlock Wellness podcast, read a little bit about each guest, and be able to click on their social media links, websites, all of that. So all of Tim's information can be found on my site as well. If you guys loved today's episode with Tim, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you loved it. I hope it inspires you. And most importantly, I hope you take action.